All right, today we're jumping into a topic that's, well, it's pretty fascinating and definitely misunderstood. We're going to look at how cuckolding, something that seems like the opposite of fidelity, could, paradoxically, be a way to build some serious unbreakable trust in a relationship. Sounds crazy, right? Well, let's break it down.
So here is our roadmap. We'll kick things off with the central paradox itself. Then we'll dig into how this whole thing can spark a communication revolution and even turn jealousy from an enemy into a teacher. After that, we'll explore something called the vulnerability crucible, what it means to choose instead of possess. And then we'll wrap it all up with the final takeaway. Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it, the trust paradox. How on earth can something that looks like the ultimate betrayal from the outside actually end up making a relationship stronger? Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And the argument here is that this kind of dynamic doesn't just test the trust you already have. No, it forces you to actively build it from scratch, demanding a level of raw honesty that, let's be real, a lot of conventional relationships never even touch. Think about it like this. In a lot of traditional relationships, trust is kind of the default setting, right? It's just assumed. But here, that assumption is completely off the table. Instead, you have to intentionally build trust, piece by piece, layer by deliberate layer. It forces everything out into the open. So you're probably wondering, how does a couple even start down this path? Well, it all kicks off with what is basically a complete revolution in how they talk to each other. And this quote from James really nails it. This journey doesn't start with actions. It starts with words. We're talking months of deep, sometimes really uncomfortable conversations about fears, desires, boundaries, all the stuff that most couples might spend a lifetime avoiding. And what's so interesting is that these conversations force couples to develop like master-level communication skills. They have to learn how to put complex feelings into words, figure out what's healthy and what's harmful, and get really, really good at being transparent. It's like building an entire emotional vocabulary just to navigate it all. Now, that intense level of communication is the only way to tackle what is probably the biggest monster in any relationship: jealousy. And this right here is a huge mental shift. Normally we see jealousy as this enemy we have to fight or suppress. But in this framework, you're forced to treat it like a teacher. It's a signal, a flashing light that's pointing to some deeper insecurity or need that you can then actually look at together. The source basically lays out a 3-step process for this. First, you just have to learn to sit with the discomfort. Don't run from it. Then you deconstruct it, you take it apart and ask, okay, what is this really? Is it fear, pride, anxiety? And finally, you reframe it. And believe it or not, for some, this can even lead to something called compersion, actually feeling joy for your partner's pleasure with someone else. Wild, huh? Okay, so all of this work, the deep talks, reframing jealousy, it's all happening inside what the source material calls a vulnerability crucible. This idea is absolutely central to the whole thing. It's not just about being a little vulnerable. It's about creating a situation where extreme, radical openness is basically the price of admission. It's a requirement if you want this to succeed and not just blow up in your face. Just for a man to share this fantasy, he's going up against everything society tells him about masculinity. He's not just risking rejection of an idea. He's risking rejection of who he is, sexually at his core. And on the flip side, as Sarah's quote shows, it's about a woman being able to share desires that society often judges pretty harshly. So when that raw vulnerability is met with acceptance instead of anger, wow, that can forge a kind of trust that's on a whole other level. So when you put all this together, the intense communication, dealing with jealousy, the radical vulnerability, it actually changes the very nature of the commitment itself. The relationship basically shifts from being something based on a social contract, a relationship by default, to one that's based on active, conscious choice every single day. I mean, when your partner has the explicit freedom to be with other people, but they choose to come back to you, well, that's a pretty powerful statement. And this leads to a really surprising statistic. More than half of straight men who have this fantasy actually report feeling closer to their partners after they share and explore it. That really speaks volumes about the power of making an active choice. All right, so we've gone through all these different layers. What's the main thing we can pull from all this? What's the core lesson here? When you boil it all down, it comes back to these core pillars. It's that powerful mix of radical communication, planned vulnerability, turning jealousy into a tool, and constantly actively choosing each other. That's the recipe for this kind of super resilient bond. And what's really crucial is that these skills don't just stay in the bedroom. The kind of honesty it takes to navigate this stuff, that bleeds over into how you talk about money. The emotional skills you learn, they make you better at parenting and handling conflict. It's called trust transference, and it can strengthen the whole partnership. Okay, but we have to put a big, bold asterisk here. This is so important. The source is crystal clear. This is not a magic fix for a broken relationship. It is not for everyone. You need a solid foundation to begin with, and both people have to be 100% on board to do the incredibly hard emotional work. So in the end, this whole thing isn't about saying, hey, everyone should do this. Not at all. It's about reframing the conversation. The value isn't understanding the principles underneath it all. So the real question it leaves us with isn't, can this work? It's what path, what agreements will allow you and your partner to build the strongest, most authentic connection you possibly can? And that's a question for every relationship, no matter what it looks like.